Hi, I'm Bill Wilt of Assured Research. Thanks so much for joining this quick hit video where we're going to focus on one research note drawn from our December 2024 Assured briefing. In this note, we look at fronting companies. Now, the quick background, there was a lot of discussion in the third quarter earnings calls, particularly around the E&S marketplace, which has experienced incredible growth over the last few years. But there was a lot of discussion about competitiveness and normalization of growth rates, and in particular a focus on the property market, cat exposed and I suppose non-cat exposed property as well, where rates are coming off rather sharply, albeit off very high and kind of levels that led to robust profitability, but competition nevertheless. So one analyst asked an E&S executive where it was coming from, and the E&S executive said, we'd suggest you look at some of the major fronting companies and look at their Schedule Ps. Well, we took that as a challenge, loving any Schedule P related, Schedule P or annual statement related work. So we thought we'd dig into it, and if you'll allow, I'm going to share the screen and I'll show you what we came up with. So first, to explain, describe what we mean, or how we came about, kind of harnessing these fronting companies. AM Best produced a report in 2023, specifically on companies that they labeled as fronting companies. Using that list, we were able to take the 20 individual companies, and see that they wrote about $11 billion of direct premium in 2023, and 70% of that, notably 70% of that premium, came from MGAs. Premium levels largely squared with another report that's out there on fronting companies. We can't represent that we've harnessed, got our arms around the entire universe, and I suspect we have not, but I think it's probably a reasonable sample. And I'll share with you some of the observations. Oh, well, one more. What types of business do the fronting companies write? It's in roughly equal parts commercial auto liability, other liability occurrence, medical professional liability, and then with a healthy dose of commercial property, fire and allied business. We formed, for purposes of comparison, took this group of 20, treated them as a cohort, and then took comparing them to what we're calling here the industry, where the industry is groups of companies, or I should say results, across an equal weighting of those same liability lines of business. It's not perfect, but at least provides something reasonable to look at and a reasonable basis for comparison. The first thing I'll tell you, you don't even have to look at the slides yet, is that the fronting companies generally produced lower gross, ceded, and net loss ratios, lower loss ratios than, in air quotes, the industry. So good for them, and that's the good news. Perhaps where we start to get to, if we're thinking about this as that an executive said, hey, there might be fire over there, and we're looking for fire, or are we seeing smoke? The second area, you maybe start to see some smoke, is if you look at the difference between the on the left is the cohort of fronting companies, their gross ultimate loss ratios. This is from Schedule P, so it's accident year. And we look at the projected ultimate loss ratios in blue by accident year at year-end 2022, and then again at year-end 2023. And then we do the same thing on the right for, again, in air quotes, the industry, the group that we're comparing them to, similar lines of business. And what you see is, if you look all the way over the left, 14, 15, 16, you see that the fronting companies increased their gross ultimate loss ratios typically by less than the industry. I guess an exception would be 2017, 5.8% loss ratio point increase compared to 3.8 loss ratio point increase for the industry. But when you get to, say, 2019, you start to see fairly consistent increases in the projected ultimate loss ratios, year-end 22 to 23, i.e. adverse reserve development, compared to, for the industry, outright favorable development, at least on accident years 20 and 21. But the broader point is that starting in 2019, the fronting companies show greater degrees of adverse development. And I will share with you that's true also across the ceded ultimate loss ratios and the net ultimate loss ratios. Better experience 2018 and earlier, worse experience among the fronting companies from a reserve development perspective, 2019 and subsequent. What changed around 2019, 2020? If you draw your eyes to the left-hand side of this chart, that could be part of the answer. This is their gross premium shown as what's retained, which we know with fronting companies, it's a small percentage of the total, I think about 10-ish%, versus ceded. But look at that dramatic growth. That's a 45% compound average growth rate from 2019 to 2023, roughly $2 billion in premium up to about $10 billion in premium. So fire or just smoke, I think there's smoke perhaps, but we don't go conclude that there's necessarily a fire. We will of course be watching this closely and hope to do more work on the fronting sector in 2025. But hope you got some value out of this. Invite you to reach out if you have questions. Thank you if you're a subscriber. If you're not and you want to look at in more detail what we have here, plus more in the note, just reach out. We'll share it to you as part of a trial to our work, which we would hope you would enjoy anyway. So listen, thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.